Hey, Dean Yeager.
Look in my eyes, what do you see? The cult of personality. I know your anger, I know your dreams. I've been everything you wanna be. Oh, I'm the cult of personality.
It's time to talk.
Time to talk.
Sure, whatever. Who cares? Different video, all right? Gonna be our first top 8. It's gonna be a top 8.
Yes.
Top 8 favorite wrestlers. We were both wrestlers. He's more of an 80s wrestler fan of that 80s era, early 90s. I do like that era. I grew up a little more in the Attitude Era. I was more of a fan of that. We did dive back into it back in, 2011 or 12?
Yeah.
And we did watch it again religiously for about 3 or 4 years, and then it just got stale. So not really up with the current product. So this is our favorite wrestlers of obviously the genres that we're
familiar with, yeah.
And I've started to watch because I watched it as a kid from like 95 till about 2001 or 2, and then I stopped watching it until 2011. I'm starting to watch from like 2001, and I'm like at 2006, and there's some good wrestlers in there too. So I've kind of revisited it a little bit.
Yeah, basically what he's saying, I could follow that up with, I stopped watching just about when he started.
Yeah. And I went back, and I did watch it as a kid, not as religiously, but I did watch it, and I've revisited some of it. So I do have some favorite guys back in that era. So we have different perspectives. So this list is going to be kind of interesting,
Yeah.
I think, on both parts. So as I always say, let's dive right into it. Not number 4. What's your number 8?
Number 8, I've got to use a cheat sheet because it's hard for me to remember all this stuff. So number 8, I had a hard time with this because there are so many wrestlers that I remember from back in the day, and then some of the newer ones from when we started watching.
Even a top 8 is tough, you know.
Yeah. So I put together what I could. It's more or less that, though. If I really thought about it, the further down the list I went, I could.
You just probably threw some names in there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But okay, so I'm going to start with.
Oh boy.
Well, you know what? Let me start. Let me do this. Let me do my number 7. I'm just going to say that for right now. Let me do my number 7. Be Hulk Hogan, without any question.
He's not your number 8. He's your number 7. I said do your number 8.
You want me to do? I want to leave that as a surprise for right now. Let me do my number 7. We'll get back to my number 8.
This is interesting. All right, number 7.
Number 7 is Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
And I know how he feels about Hulk Hogan. Now, I've come to the realization the guy wasn't even in the realm of sports entertainment. He wasn't exactly a great tactician. He wasn't the best when it came to a variety of different moves and maneuvers in the ring. He was maybe the 80s version of John Cena, I guess. But you could credit him a lot with putting wrestling where it was. Wrestling where it was in the 80s. I was a big Hulk Hogan fan as a kid. Heavily promoted as a kid. I do. My memory for this stuff is not as good as yours. I did watch. For WrestleMania 2, 3.
3, it was the big one with Andre.
Right, that was a big one.
He headlined 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, 5.
Yeah.
I think 6. After that, it gets kind of fuzzy for me. But no, he headlined a lot, and then he went to WCW, and WCW was just a small company. It was nothing. And then they signed Hulk Hogan, and all of a sudden, hey, what is this? And then you had other wrestlers come down there, and then it became what we do now is the Monday Night Wars. It was a back and forth thing. So no, this is, I guess, a pretty good segue. He's my number 8.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what introduced me to wrestling. That's really what I had watched. So like I said, I didn't get too much into it. I knew certain other wrestlers. I'm a fan of those wrestlers. But when I was a kid, it was all about Hulk Hogan. I had a Hulk Hogan action figure.
Yep.
I mean, that was all you knew. If you didn't know anything, you knew Hulk Hogan. So it didn't matter if you have a top 100 wrestlers. If Hulk Hogan's not on that list, you obviously didn't know wrestling. Yes, he was very limited in what he could do. But in the 80s, everything was big. It was all about big egos, big this and that.
Right.
You didn't have to be a great wrestler.
But
you
there
know?
were a lot.
There
of them.
were great wrestlers, especially in the latter part of the 80s. And then
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into those. But he was everything. And he, look, I mean, everybody still talks about Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And he hasn't wrestled since, I think, 2011. And even then, that wasn't a match. I think it was just a fight with him and Sting for, like, the control of TNA. But that's a whole other issue.
His personality was larger than life.
Yes.
He was on all the commercials as a kid. Those plush. Remember
Oh my
the
gosh, dude!
stuff?
He is always about self promotion. He was at a Cowboy game like 2 years ago, and they were playing the Giants, and they put him on the trot, and he knew they were going to put him on at some point because he had a Giants shirt on. Everybody booed. He stood up and he ripped that shirt off, and it was Cowboys. So he
Yes.
knows what he's doing. So
Yeah.
yes, that's easy. So should I do my number 7 now because you
Yeah.
did your 7?
Go ahead.
This is very confusing. My number 7 is from that same area. Basically, one of Hogan's antagonists is Rowdy Piper.
Roddy Piper, man.
Rowdy Piper, man. You cannot, a villain, one of the top villains ever in wrestling.
Yes.
He was the guy. Again, not a very great wrestler. He actually got a little better the more he did it.
Right.
But again, still kind of limited.
Yeah,
You know, he
brawler.
couldn't go all the way with like Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels,
No.
things like that. But again, great on the microphone, great
Yeah.
antagonist. Again,
Piper's Pit, man.
yeah, you cannot, again, have a List without putting Rowdy Piper on there. And again, hats off and respect because we've lost him. But yeah,
Right.
Rowdy Piper's, yeah, he's number 7. So
Okay, number 7. So that leads me to my number 6.
yes, it's still weird.
My number 6 would, because I've got a lot of fond memories of him in the ring, would be Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect.
Paul Hennig?
Paul Henning, yeah.
Paul Hennig.
Yeah, I liked him. This is hard because there's so many wrestlers that I like, and just quick shout out to like Eddie Guerrero, a great, technical wrestler. He could work with anybody. Any of his matches look good. And Mr. Perfect again had a great personality.
And he was a good
He's
technical
pretty
wrestler.
good wrestler, you know. And it's just hard to come up with these lists sometimes because some of these wrestlers are so great. I'll go ahead and say it right now, The Rock is not on my list, but I like The Rock. He wasn't ever my favorite, but I did like him. But he's not on my list. Big shout out to Mick Foley.
Yeah.
He's not on. This is even we did 8. We usually do top 4, top 8. This was hard, but no, that's awesome. You put him in your top 8.
Mr. Percy, again, it just, when I was growing up, and I was born in 81, as I was growing up, the big thing was stables, too.
Oh man, stables
Stables.
were the best, and they don't do that anymore.
And what was one of the big stables back then was always Bobby Heenan. Not only on the
Bobby
mic,
the Brain, man.
Bobby the Brain. He always
the
had a
Brain.
stable.
If
Whether
we
it
did
was,
commentator or managers, he would definitely be in there.
yeah, whether it was Andre the Giant and Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful,
Yes.
or it was Mr. Perfect. And you always had 3, 4 guys. My memory, again, about wrestling, not as good as yours, but I do remember, and they had a name for Heenan's stable of wrestlers. I
I can't
forgot.
go that.
But it was Perfect was always one of the
Oh
big
yes,
ones.
yeah. Oh, that's great. And sadly, he's not with us anymore either.
Right.
But no, that's that's awesome. So my number 6, you're throwing me off because you didn't give your 8. My number 6 is, I guess you say a little more modern, is Triple H, Paul Levesque.
Okay, yeah.
He broke in right when I started. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, I remember him even in WCW. I couldn't even tell you his name, but he just always, especially, and in what I'm revisiting now from 2001 and I'm at 2006, he has these 5-star matches with like Batista, Shawn Michaels. Him and Shawn Michaels had a match like every month for a year. It's just, he's a tech guy. He's great heel. He's a good fan favorite too. He's in the stable DX. I had to put him in there because it seems like every time he did a match, even in 2002 when Hogan was very limited, he made Hogan look great. And not just, taking Hogan's bumps and like, oh my God, he's larger than life. He made Hogan look good. I mean, anytime he was in a match, to me, it was a 5-star match. You don't look at that match and be like, that was a clinker. I know that's a little out of your knowledge. I know you saw some of his later matches with like Brock Lesnar and things like that.
And that's the problem. I definitely respect him as an entertainer, as a wrestler. I've seen him mainly without his hair. Like,
That's weird. I missed the ponytail. He had the look, and that was it. He had the look. When he formed DX, then he formed Evolution with Flair, Batista, and Randy Orton, and he just had that look. He was a heel. He was a great heel, and that's why I had to put him in there.
And I understand that. I can respect that. Again, going back to what I've said before, I missed all that. I missed the Monday Night Wars. I missed the
missed a
Attitude
great
Era.
time.
I missed all that. I missed, and that is why, and I'll be very blunt, very honest right now, Triple H, guys like him, Batista, even up into, and I'm going to put this out there, I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this. Undertaker's not on my list, and I'll tell you why. He was coming up. He absolutely was introduced when in the latter part of my days watching before I stopped in 95, 96. But the whole thing about his catapult to stardom, and then of course his brother Kane coming in, that wasn't until later. I know who he was before I stopped watching, but his great days, his what would you call his pinnacle, his height of fame, wasn't until.
You disappoint me.
Yeah, see,
right.
no explanation I give is going to be good.
What is your number 5?
Number 5 is going to be a newer guy, and I got to be familiar with him through starting to watch again around 2010, 11. Brock Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar. I did like him. I remember when he broke in, and there's a whole backstory with him. He was supposed to have a whole story with Stone Cold, but he ended up leaving. And then when he came back, it was epic. But I like him, but it's hard to put him in there because the matches, especially later on, they got robotic. They were the same thing over and over and over again. But if we're talking 2002 to 2004, yeah, he would probably be in there.
See, and again, I could only speak for what I saw. And I've seen excerpts. You've shown me, excerpts I've seen on the WWE channel, the network, of all these, DX and the Monday Night Wars, and then of course when Lesnar comes in. I've seen some of that.
Yeah.
But most of what I'm familiar with, and I like it because the guy's a beast, man. He comes in, and tears down walls, and he knocks guys down, and
he's the beast incarnate.
Yeah, there you go. And Paul Heyman,
Paul Heyman. If we were doing a manager, like I said, Paul Heyman would be there with Bobby the Brain.
Yes,
Paul
Heyman harkens back to
he
the old days.
Magnifies Brock Lesnar's ability. So I respect it, and again, it's hard. Like I'm thinking right now, like I wish I had enough room to put AJ Styles on the list. AJ Styles is like the consummate professional. He's a worker.
Yeah, he's a good wrestler.
Another quick shout out to one that passed away tragically, Owen Hart. Owen Hart was good, It's sad that we lost him so early because he could have had great matches with like Eddie Guerrero, Brock Lesnar.
Right.
He was just like his brother, very technical. But no, I don't knock it off putting him on there.
Yeah.
But my number 5 would be Chris Jericho.
Okay.
I remember when Chris Jericho broke out in WCW. I was a fan of him, good WCW. I was always disappointed because I always felt like he hit this wall that he couldn't get past. And a lot of people had that problem in WCW, and that's probably why they went under. But his iconic debut, interrupting The Rock. Nobody interrupted The Rock. Interrupted him during the middle of a big promo. And just the way he wrestles, the way he carries himself, and doesn't complain. I mean, hell, 4 or 5 years ago, he had a job to Fandango. Not too many people would do that, and he didn't like it. I've heard him in interviews like, and I'm like, Jericho deserved better than that. But he's just a consummate professional, had just 5-star matches with Triple H, with Shawn Michaels. He beat Rock and Stone Cold in the same night, and when they were at the height of their careers. So, first undisputed champion. And he's still going. He started another company. I don't have enough time to invest in watching another wrestling promotion, but my hat's off to him. I think he's been great since the early 90s, and he's still going strong.
I know who this guy is. I watched a lot of his more recent matches where he comes in with like a bright light coat that lights up.
Well, and it was great too. We were watching. Remember, they had the best friends thing with Kevin Owens. That promo was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens is cool. Shout out
Kevin
to him.
Owens is a good
He's
one,
great. I all the respect to the guy. I'm just not as familiar with. If you were to say to me, "Oh, Big John Studd" or Birdman
John
Coco,
Studd was good.
Yeah.
Coppola was kind of limited, but
yeah, Birdman Coco Beware, you know, with the,
Oh.
you know,
but
Yeah.
top 4, and then your number 8.
right. Well, we do have to get to my number 8. I would say, and it's very difficult here. I think at some point I'm going to have to do like a slash. Like, I can't pick, you know.
All right.
But right now I'd have to go with Bret Hart.
Bret Hart. He's on my list.
Yeah.
I was always a fan of Bret Hart. The best there was, the best there is, the best there ever will be. And in a lot of ways, I agree with that. You know, he had great matches, and that's why it's hard. I understand you didn't see Undertaker, especially mid 2000s to the late 2000s. He's had these 5-star matches, but he had great matches with Bret Hart. But anytime Bret Hart was in the ring, technical, consummate professional, great on the mic. So no, I don't disagree with you on it. He's on my list.
He had a lot of different nicknames and stuff like that. He was with the excellence of execution,
Something like that.
yeah. And I remember breaking out in the scene with Jimmy the Mouth from the
Yes,
South,
yes.
Jimmy Hart with
Hart,
the megaphone.
yes. But he didn't need anybody. I thought he was always better. I mean, yeah, the Hart Foundation was great.
Right. Well, and that's what I remember initially. That's what I'm saying. Late '80s, you were with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I always liked him. I always thought he had a cool look with the goatee, the shaved head. And of course, he broke away from that, did his own thing, and started a cool feud with Shawn Michaels. Obviously,
Yes.
later on.
And that's really the only bad thing. And we won't get into the whole thing what happened Montreal Screwjob, but the way he handled it, and I understand he took it personal, but basically exposing the business, going on all these interviews and trashing like this is the way it was written and all this stuff. But other than that,
He developed a chip on his shoulder.
a little bit there
bit.
at the end, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a different thing. But no, he's on my list, so we'll talk about him here again in a minute. But my number 4 was one of his antagonists, was Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
Excluding a couple of years in there when the Attitude Era was first starting and he had this kind of flamboyant, sexy boy where he'd always trying to take his pants off. I was not a fan of that at all. But breaking in with the Rockers, going in on his own. He had the
right,
first
Marty
ever,
Jannetty.
the first ever ladder match, him and Scott Hall. That was iconic. And then when he came back after back surgery, and having these 5-star matches, everybody, and then the 2 matches at the end to end his career, both of them with The Undertaker, again, going out there and making guys look good. Even Flair's last match, he wanted to have with Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels made him look like a rock star. So, yeah, I mean, Mr. WrestleMania, yeah, number 4.
Yeah, I still remember, what was it, the Iron Man match? That
Yes,
hour-long match?
yes.
That I do remember.
Him and
That
Bret
was cool.
Hart,
Yeah.
Yeah, and he refereed, I think, the Iron Man match with Rock and Triple H.
Okay.
That was after you, I know, but just a little side note there.
Uh,
Had some demons and persevered, and I had to put him in there.
so that leads me to
Number 3.
my number 3 is, and I really just fell in love with this guy. I mean, when I started watching it in 2010, 2000, his personality, he was against the grain. He was a rebel. CM Punk.
CM Punk. That was a hard cut. I mean, again, it's hard to have a list without like Hogan and Piper. I wanted Punk in there, but again, there was some things there at the end. He left the company. He was upset, and I understand that. But just kind of the way he handled things, it was hard. But no, great on the mic. Compared to Rowdy Piper,
Yeah.
outstanding wrestler, outstanding. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those hard things that it was a hard cut at the end. But no, I respect the hell out of you for putting him in there.
Yeah, great technical wrestler. Like you said, great on the mic. The contemporary Piper. He was just against the establishment. What was it? The pipe bomb.
Pipe bombs, yeah. That was iconic, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, absolutely. I had to have him in there.
Awesome. My number 3, I think was your number 4, was Bret the Hitman Hart.
Right.
Especially, once he broke out on his own and he started becoming a championship contender, I was all for that. And then he had some great matches with like Stone Cold. He was great. Quick shout out with the Ultimate Warrior. That was a hard one not to put in there either,
Yeah.
but big Ultimate Warrior fan. But no, Bret the Hitman Hart was always, anytime he was having a match, I was there centerfold. And I was very disappointed when the Montreal screw job happened, when he got screwed and you didn't know if it was real, if it was not real. But yeah, definitely my number 3.
Well, okay, so it segues into my number 2, and if you, give me some leeway on this, it's got to be, it's a tie for me.
Oh my gosh.
And now you could say, well, if you just would have dropped your number 8, would have had room.
I'm so confused with this too. Still got to get to his number 8.
Okay, well, but essentially,
Number 2.
all right, number 2, what it boils down to is I couldn't make a decision as Roddy Piper and Macho Man Randy Savage.
Which one are you going with?
No, it's a tie for me.
You can't do that.
It's
Then I would have been doing that on everyone. I would have had a 7A and a 7B, a 6A, 6B.
Well, I
You're
asked you
cheating
for a
on
little
me.
bit of leeway on this.
Cheater.
So anyway,
I need to go at it like 4 more now. But we talked about Roddy Piper. Randy Macho Man Savage was great. WrestleMania 3, his match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah.
Iconic match. That stole the show. That was bigger than the Hogan Andre the Giant, because really you didn't get a whole lot out of that. He tried to body slam him, almost got a 3. It sounded like a 3. Then, it was a little of this and a little of that, and then he hulks up and ends up body slamming him 1, 2, 3, and the match was over. But Ricky the Dragon and Randy Savage tore the house down.
Yeah, Savage could do it.
Yeah.
He was a high-flying wrestler, just like Ricky the Dragon, just like Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Great wrestlers, great tacticians. And, eventually, obviously, one of the biggest feuds of all time was Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. The first they were the
Superpowers?
The Superpowers.
Yeah.
Or the Mega Powers.
The Mega Powers, yeah.
And then, then they broke up, and yeah. So, no, I respect it. I just a little miffed that you would put 2 in your number 2. If I'd known that, I would have done that a couple of times. But my number 2, he mentioned it earlier, it's not on this list, but it's The Undertaker. I remember when The Undertaker broke through, I was terrified when he first came out. You didn't know who the heck this guy was. And then when you get older and you see some of those matches again, he's like, dude, he's no selling. Like, the other wrestlers had to have been pissed. And then he went to the American Badass scene, and that was cool. Then he went back to the Dead Man, and that's when he started having these 5-star matches, like Randy Orton, Edge, and then the 2 with Shawn Michaels, the 2 with Triple H. I mean, there's nothing to be said. That character and that persona, it's got to be the best gimmick of all time. It has to be. Roddy Piper is, to me, that's just an extension of him. He's Roddy Piper in and out of the ring.
Right.
Some of these other guys. But The Undertaker, he's definitely number 2.
Yeah.
I was always a fan of The Undertaker. Even if he was a heel, I rooted for The Undertaker.
Well, you got to give props to Paul Bearer, too.
Yes. And then a little bit of props to when they introduced an antagonist, his brother Kane, Glenn Jacobs, who also was an extension of him. Constant professional, great in the ring, great personality, great persona. So all that just elevated the character of The Undertaker.
And I can absolutely, I guess the only reason some of these guys never made it onto my list was because
You didn't really watch them.
Right. I wasn't. You're familiar with what you're familiar with, and so
Number 1.
Saying that, number 1, as a kid,
I kind of think I know where you're going. Can I guess?
Go ahead.
Is it Jake the Snake?
It is Jake the Snake Roberts.
Jake the Snake.
Jake the Snake.
Let me just say, he wasn't on my list, and it was hard to even consider him on my list. I was a fan of Jake the Snake. I loved him. Great heel. Could wrestle. He was a big guy. Yeah, so I kind of knew where you were going with that.
before that, promos were all talk. They were all, we're going to do this to your brother and this and that. Jake the Snake was one of the first ones to bring in like a very cerebral, get in your head, very dark,
very weird,
twisted.
And he throw a snake on you.
Yeah.
There's a whole story too where, none of the snakes were poisonous. Yeah, they would bite you. He said that he was supposed to put the snake on Randy, and he said, I don't know about this, brother. Randy was always paranoid, and he said, don't worry about it, Randy. And so basically, he was not going to leave until Jake let it bite him. And so he let him bite him, and Randy watched him for 20 minutes to make sure he didn't die. And then, Jake's like, are you happy? And he just got up and walked out. So, quick shout out real quick to the Big Show, too. Yeah. Great big guy. Andre the Giant, too. Total respect for him. Great gimmick. When he was younger, he could wrestle pretty good, and then the Big Show following it. So quick shout out to the Big Show.
Right. There's a lot of wrestlers that we could
be here all day.
Yes.
Even a top 8, it's like we're doing double. It still didn't seem like
you could do a top 25 and you still wouldn't cover
all the wrestlers. Because Ric Flair, you got to give a shout out to Ric Flair.
Ric Flair's
and the Four Horsemen. You know.
Yeah.
But my number one, obviously, was the height of when I watched the Attitude Era. Elevated the business, put WCW out of business, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, honestly, in his earlier days, especially as a ringmaster in WCW, he was really a technical wrestler. Like, you can watch some of his WCW matches with Ricky the Dragon, and they were great. He's flying high, doing all this stuff. Then he had that tragic incident with Owen Hart where he broke his neck. He had to change his style. He was more of a brawler. But it fit the Stone Cold persona. Great on the mic. Him against Vince McMahon is the all-time greatest storyline ever.
Right.
Shout out to Vince McMahon, too.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon is the greatest antagonist ever. His looks, his quirks, what he did, the way he said things. I love it. Anytime Vince McMahon would come on screen, I would just love it. Stone Cold beat the crap out of him. The Rock, The Undertaker. Right now, like I said, I'm revisiting. DX is going after him. And just the way that he acts and does things. Again, that just made Stone Cold even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Stone Cold Steve Austin. I was introduced to him, of course, later on.
Yeah.
And I agree with everything you said. I'm sorry he's not on my list. Again, that falls.
You didn't want. I can't, like I said again, this is hard, so I'm not flacking you for anything. The only thing I'm flacking you for is we're done with number 1. Now we got to go all the way back to your number 8. But no,
surprise.
He changed the business, revolutionized. Merchandise wasn't that big a deal.
Right.
You saw Hulk Hogan shirts. I didn't see anything else. NWO, when NWO started. When Stone Cold started and he started doing shirts, then all of a sudden you saw Undertaker shirts, Rock shirts, Triple H shirts, and it just exploded. But yeah, I had it, hands down, Stone Cold Steve Austin, most iconic wrestler.
The one thing about Vince McMahon is, the funny thing about it, when I was growing up watching, he was a commentator. He was.
I know, because he didn't want anybody to know that he owned the company. He just loved to call matches.
Right, and the funny thing, I had a friend tell me one day, Vince McMahon owns it, and I couldn't believe it. That blew my mind. I said, whoever, I forget, Teddy something or
Ted Turner.
No, I don't remember the guy's name, but I said, he's the president. He runs the company.
No,
and it's Vince. I said, no, it's a company. He's on the microphone.
Number 8.
Number 8. I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball here.
Yeah, you already did, because we should have been already done with your number 8.
The Boogeyman.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Boogeyman, dude. That guy's awesome. He can be the Boogeyman. He's got the worms coming out of his mouth.
Oh, dude. Look, if anything worked was the gimmick.
Yeah.
He couldn't wrestle for crap. But as I've kind of revisited, because again, like I said, I'm watching it, he's debuted. If you saw him jumping off the top rope and throwing elbows like Ricky the Dragon, to me, it wouldn't fit the persona.
Yeah.
So they probably said you can't wrestle. Maybe the guy wrestles pretty good. I don't know. I mean, he couldn't wrestle for crap when I saw it, but the gimmick was great. I mean, yeah,
I don't know.
You put him on there as a goof, I know that.
Yeah.
And then you goofed, you wait to do it at the end.
Yeah, I screwed that up.
That's all right, though. But, no, this is fun. that's your top 8. You know, that's our first top 8. You know, and we could have done the top 50, and I think we still would have left guys out.
Sure, yeah.
But wrestling is tough. If you're a wrestling fan out there, let us know what your favorites are. Let us know what era you watch, what era is your favorite. And, you know, I guess that's it.
That's it.
Until then, see you next time.
Bye.